Hi, everybody. Welcome you to another episode of Tech After Work. And this time I have one of my favorite people, Madu Ratnayake. Madu has been one of my favorite people in the Sri Lankan tech ecosystem for multiple reasons. One is he has gone through the real growth of at work while the country also grew to be kind of a tech destination. And he's an amazing guy to talk to. He has a lot of great ideas. Every time I talk to Madu, I come back with a lot of learnings and a lot of thoughts. So very happy to have you.
Great to
on
be
the show.
here. Yeah,
Yes.
fantastic.
Okay, let's start off with the obvious, interesting story of you. So just to give a background, Madu now has a cybersecurity firm that he owns, and before that he was in Virtusa, which is a global software product engineering company, but a lot of diversified work that they do. He was there for 25 years, and he was the CIO for the last many years. So let's talk about that experience, Madhu, on because you joined as a non-managerial position, right?
that's
What
right.
was your start?
Yeah. I joined as an engineer at
Okay.
Virtusa. It's an interesting story, and I studied in the UK,
Okay.
and I did a bit of work there. And then when I was coming back to Sri Lanka, Virtusa was just started, and we had about 3-4 people. And one of my friends who used to study with me in the UK had come back and joined Virtusa at that time.
Okay.
So he said, "Hey, why don't you come? There's a whole bunch of interesting guys." So then Chris was here, Chris Kanakaratna, who was the CEO and founder, and that's how I got started. I didn't really at that point look for anything.
And you studied computer science?
I studied software engineering.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I had 4 years of
Okay.
pretty hardcore software engineering.
Right.
I loved it. I did an IBM before that,
Right.
because our schools got disrupted through the riots time, right?
Okay.
So before A level, I actually did an IBM, and I went
Right.
back, did A levels, went to UK,
Okay.
worked a little bit, and then come back. Yeah, so Virtusa was kind of almost just happened because few of my friends were there, right?
Sure.
And so I joined as an engineer. In a very, very early stage, real garage operation. We were really in a garage
Really?
in
Okay.
Chris's mother's house in Colombo. Very passionate bunch of guys. Everybody was engineer, and then we kind of grew very, very fast.
What was the original goal? Why did the
So
company
we
exist?
started the company when this little before Y2K, right? So this is like 86, 87 time frame. There's a lot
I
of
wasn't even born back then. Yeah.
Right, and there was a lot of, this is where the India also growing, and a lot of people were setting up companies to do Y2K remediation, right? You would probably even remember there was this whole worry about whole world that the computers will stop working when year 2000 come, right?
Yes.
So Chris and the founders of Virtusa had the vision that the real requirement for technology is post Y2K, right? When the Y2K is over, that people will start using technology to really advance business, right? So we started building the company to be able to really cater for the post Y2K demand. So we went into .NET, the Windows, those days, they were like very, very early stages, right? So we built a set of competencies to be able to go after really advanced technologies and companies who will kind of go beyond Y2K thing, right? We had some really amazing Y2K contracts coming in. I know we very clearly stayed away from that. We would have had like 1,000 people doing some COBOL or something at that point if we did that.
Right.
But we went really focused on this high tech and
I think a lot of our young audience have no idea about the worry everybody had in 2000, right? I had very little idea. Do you want to tell us a bit about like the story behind what scared everybody?
Yeah, I think it was simple. computers were designed with dates with two characters
Yeah.
thing, right? So you put, 99 was just 99, and all the logic was built around this thing, right?
Yeah.
And the year 2000 come, these two digits become two zeros,
Yeah.
right? And because you no longer,
Yeah.
so when you all the math that you
Yeah.
do to, like, for example, airline scheduling, any other, a lot of things that were computer dependent work, like rail scheduling and things like that, became a big issue, because you haven't thought about that, how these,
How
when
it
you
would
how we go from 99 to 0,
Mm.
how that the whole logic works, right? So that was a real big scare, because didn't know how much of this is there in computer systems, right? And
Right.
how much of that mission critical, how much of that depended on things.
Mm.
So that was a kind of the genesis of that, right?
Mm.
So people were hurriedly changing these 2 digits to 4 digit, right? That was a whole Y2K boom that had built Indian industry, if you think about, right?
Right.
And changing 2 digit to 4 digit and rewriting some of the code
Yeah.
was one of the big things that started this offshoring work,
Right.
right? And
Right. Nice.
yeah,
And then so you started as an engineer, and then you became a CIO in like 17 years, 18 years,
yeah,
somewhere
yeah.
around the line. And then you have held a lot of managerial positions, right? How was it for you growing as a leader in a company? I think it it's a fantastic experience, but at the same time, it's a mind bending experience as well. You get exposed into so many things, and then you learn so many things. You challenge yourself in so many ways. What was it
Absolutely.
like for you?
Absolutely. I think when you join a growing company like Virtusa, you end up. Yeah, I never thought about this as a role, right? I wasn't thinking like I'm an engineer, I'm a manager, whatever, right? You always get the job done, get involved in whatever you can do to contribute. So, in a startup, you will do from fixing the computer to writing code to dealing with the customer to, doing everything that under the sun that you have to do to get the business going, right? So that's a mindset I had, right? I never thought about me as any role of such. And when you're growing, obviously you're rapidly adding people, you need some way to kind of manage that. um, I had a passion for working with people, so it's naturally I get into doing that, right? And but at heart, I'm still a techie. I'd love to
Right.
get my hands dirty,
Right.
work, meddle
Yeah.
with technology. I started actually with doing a lot of hardware work, right? And
Right.
played with some hardware, but then yeah, that's how you really end up. It was just a slow
And
went into it.
and that's a fantastic experience, being in a growing company, because I remember starting the company thinking I'm an engineer, I'm a
Yeah.
reasonably good coder, so I'm just gonna be able to code, right?
That's right.
And then start a company, build software. And took me a while to realize there's so much more. Like then I ended up learning HR, I ended up learning psychology of people,
Yeah.
I ended up learning how do you do finance, how do you do bookkeeping, all the way to operations, to even cleaning. Right, first few years
Absolutely.
it was just us cleaning our office, but I think for me personally, that helped me see things in
Yeah.
a very
That gives
interesting
you
way.
a really rounded experience,
Yeah.
right? And absolutely, yeah.
Because if you think about it, what is really leadership? It's about being rounded and being able to do everything in some way or the other, but while specializing in something.
Yeah.
That's fun. The company has grown from a few people when you started to at best I don't know 30,000-40,000 now.
Yeah, now I think 40,000 plus
40
people,
Wow.
right? I mean, I've been out of that for the
Sure.
last 3 years. I've not
Right.
been there.
Right.
2 years.
Right. How was it growing the organization outside, from customers' point of view to retaining customers to going into new markets? Because you guys have done some fantastic work with really big brands worldwide. That was first time for a Sri Lankan company to work with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we looked at this in a kind of couple of different ways, and I think one of the things our founders Chris was very, very focused on doing is really getting into some marquee customers and then really build from that, right?
Right.
So at every kind of inflection point in the journey, right? If you think about the company's growth, what worked for say 100 people doesn't work when you have 500 people, right?
Yeah, it doesn't.
When you go to from what worked for 500 people doesn't work when you're 1,000, right? And it was 10,000. So you have to reinvent yourself, right? Each inflection point in your growth, you have to keep reinventing, and all the time. And we had a customer who comes at certain point and really push the boundary for you, right? You really, we are lucky to have those customers at right points and really throw you off from where you are to a completely new place, challenge you, really show you that there's a lot more than what you're doing today, right? And so we were lucky to have some really marquee customers along the way to be able to go through that, right? And I love those experiences. Looking back, those were traumatic kind of experiences, but you learn. And if you had that view that I want to really learn from this and step up my game because of that, and as a company, as a team, we really benefited from that, right? And so we always had the view that we never thought like we are a small company, right? We always compared with some of the best in the world. We competed with the best in the world.
Right.
In our minds, we were always, look, we are there, right? And that kind of set the stage, right? And we always look at, we want to be number 1, 2, or 3 around the world, right? And that I think was a great mindset, which I think I should be thankful for Chris for setting that up, and a lot of us kind of imbibe that thought process.
Even though you casually said that as if it's a very normal thing for you guys, I think a lot of companies and founding teams don't understand that, because I think even when you are big, I think one of the mistakes I see is everybody tries to set a plan and try to achieve that, and they measure it based on that. But being dynamic and growing the way the market responds is a traumatic yet useful thing to do. Because I had exact same experiences. Because I remember setting up this office about 4 or 5 years back, and then we had like barely 20 people, less than 20 people, and then I invested everything that was sitting on the back, almost everything, to set up an interior that looked like one of our dream competitors globally that time. Because my point was, okay, I have 18 people right now, but my goal is to grow to 100 or more. So I need to have a place where I can attract the top
that
talent,
kind of people,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it could have turned out to be a stupid idea, because we were waiting for the next payment from the customer after building this. And then every other thing. And then at one point, we had this, one of these, the company, the product that's Nordic's largest fitness enterprise system. We got a pitch opportunity to pitch, right? One of the people there asked me, okay, we have an open tender, do you want to participate? And when I looked at it, it was like, oh, this is too big for us. We are not capable. We might fail really badly. But then we gave all in, exactly what you said. Those opportunities can be transformative, right? So we gave all in and we pitched, and then we ended up winning. And then suddenly I had to hire another 15 to 20 people. And I didn't even have space in office.
You grow into it, right? When you put yourself into a situation that you grow into it naturally, right?
And they became one of our marquee kind of anchor customers who just still work with us. We are very grateful.
That's brilliant.
Nice. Later in your career, you ended up starting Scybers, a cybersecurity firm, right? First of all, what's your love with cybersecurity?
So we as we get into a lot of the enterprises, at my CIO role at Virtusa, the last say 7-8 years, right? And we're working with a lot of global enterprises, the banks, the insurance companies, and if you think about the intellectual property kind of personal data they carry, cybersecurity is such a huge thing for those companies, right? And so we learn to work with them and build the cybersecurity capability to be able to service them, right? And we even build a cybersecurity practice at Virtusa. And that gave me a lot of experience about really dealing. How do you set up cybersecurity in a large enterprise, right?
Okay.
And then when we were thinking about starting the company, the market opportunity we saw is that, okay, the large big enterprise have their big cybersecurity teams. They know how to get it done. They can attract the right kind of people. But the next level of companies, the like a one minus the big enterprises, right? The mid enterprise companies, they have a huge challenge, right? One, they're rapidly going digital. They're putting a lot of stuff out there, right? So they're exposing themselves significantly. Their threat landscape is their exposure is increasing. Secondly, the threats are increasing as well, right? With the invent of Bitcoin, now you can get ransom and things like that without being identified, right? So that had accelerated the attacks significantly around the world, right?
That's a huge incentive.
That's a huge incentive, right? And the third point is a lot of the regulators are now tightening and saying that if you're collecting personal data, you have to protect it, otherwise you're personally liable. So if you think about those three things, right, you're going digital and attacks are increasing and the regulation is increasing, it's a bit of a perfect storm, right? And companies are struggling to address that. And worldwide, there's a huge demand for cybersecurity professional, and there's a big vacuum, right? So we felt that's a great opportunity to really help mid enterprises address their cybersecurity needs by working with a partner, right? Like Scybers. So that's the genesis, right? That's where the market demand. And so myself and a few of our Virtusa colleagues got together and we started the company about 3 years ago.
And fantastic, you guys have grown to more than 70 now.
That's right.
It's an amazing
70
journey.
people. Yeah, it's
amazing journey.
It's been a fantastic journey so far.
Congratulations. It's not easy to get into an entrepreneur life while being after being a CIO for like a global firm, traveling everywhere, properly settled in life, right? Why would you do that?
I also don't know why. It was always fun. I think, I had the idea of doing something with our teams that people have built relationships with.
Right.
But this was a kind of a nice opportunity, a nice area. We felt it was growing very rapidly, right? And I think you're right, because you are very enthusiastic. You're very, very excited when you're starting, right? You're sometimes, you jump in and then look at what you're doing. So, you go through these phases, right? You start really excited, you've got few people and start, and you got one or two customers. And then the whole challenges begin, right? You really have to figure out, okay, how do you scale? How do you build a repeatable business? How do you address finance? How do you manage cash flow? Then you get into why am I doing this, right? And then you start building, right? And then at some point you build a sustainable business, and that'll start, getting into a point that okay, you're back now, you're comfortable. But you go through that initial kind of phase of excitement, and then you go through a bit of challenges and really trying to test your ability to build a business. And then when you go through that, if you come out of that alive, and then you build a great business to grow, right? And I think so that has been kind of my experience, and I've seen we do a lot of that at my Virtusa experience, right? One of the early things we did there is working with startups, right? So we had this whole program that we would build tech for startup companies. So we had the opportunity to work with a lot of the startup guys. We've seen the journey. We work that experience had really helped as well as we go. But yeah, I mean, it's fun, it's exciting, and at the same time challenging, and you're really trying to build a global enterprise, right?
From a mindset point of view, when you wake up every day, it's drastically different challenges, right? Maybe from an organization leadership point of view, it's kind of very similar challenges that you have been through, but the risk you are taking is very high, right? Because when you run a business, it's always, I mean, you have great days, you have great weeks, great months, great quarters, but it's just, some days you feel like you're on top of the world, some days you feel like you're a piece of shit, right? Like, how do you But did you get shocked when you felt that, or has it been very similar journey, because different businesses have different.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right, absolutely, and I think it's very different, right? When you're in a corporate role and you're
Yeah.
doing a large enterprise role is very different, right? You get up and do very different things. You're thinking about technology, you're thinking about strategy, future,
Yeah.
and things like that. But when you're in a startup, you're thinking about, okay, sales and sales, right? You're really figuring out how to grow the business, right? And at this stage, right, that's kind of the main priority. And then making sure you're creating value for your customers, right? Obviously you won't build a sustainable business unless you create great value, right, to your customers. So those are kind of priorities. Now for me, I really get up and figure out, okay, are we doing enough to grow the business and make sure that you're going
Yeah.
and looking at opportunities. And then secondly, whoever who had trusted us to look after their security, are we doing a great job, and are we putting our best effort in delivering that, right? And so those predominantly big priorities. And I think we're also trying to build an organization that a lot more employee owned, and so we're getting a bunch of people who are passionate about this thing. We want to make sure that they benefit from as we build a company. So we got a great team at the start, and so that's kind of the third piece. We are trying to help build opportunities for a larger group of people with this setup.
And are you? I'm assuming you would do a lot of work in sales globally as well, right? Are you guys targeting any particular markets right now?
Yeah, so we are targeting a couple of areas. So one is the financial services, fintechs. That's kind of big part. A lot of us come from that experience. We run security in that area. Then the other areas are the what we call the digital engineering, the SaaS, and companies who are building technology based businesses, largely fully cloud native kind of a company. So we are that, not very specific industry but broadly, right? And those kind of guys. And the third sector is the healthcare that we are looking at. We have a bit of pharma and that kind of experiences. So few areas. And I think in this space it's important that you understand the threats and what's in that space. So so we are building expertise in that domain means you really understand the threats in the domain, right?
That is true.
How to mitigate that, how to build strategies to reduce risks and compliance requirements and things like that, right? So we want to really focus on few areas and go deep at the moment, right? And we are exploring few other areas, but eventually we'll narrow down to one or two.
That makes perfect sense, because being able to pinpoint details and potential pitfalls would be a big asset.
That's right.
Your line of work. And you would have traveled to a lot of countries in the world, right? Do you have any favorites? What's your favorite place in Earth?
Here, Sri Lanka.
I say the same.
I think I've traveled, and even when I went out and I lived outside a bit, and I always wanted to come back. I'm not a big travel guy, right? So I haven't. Most of my trips has been, hey, go to the office, probably work there, and maybe weekend out and then come back, right? So I haven't. As a result, haven't.
That actually gives me so much of peace, because you know why? I used to enjoy traveling in my like 7-8 years back. I used to pack my bags and go on a backpack trip to a mountain.
Oh, wonderful.
Now I don't do that. And I'm not interested in that anymore. 95% of my travels, I go do a meeting, sleep in the hotel, sit back, have a coffee, and just come back. And I thought I'm a boring guy. But
oh yeah, you have another one boring guy to join your company. I love the environment. I like the experience. I more importantly, I think connecting with people was kind of my thing. Than the looking at seeing places, because one of the things I was fortunate to work with in the early stages of my career, especially through Virtusa experience, is to work with some of the best people around the world, right? If you're working with some of the large enterprises, big banks, big telcos, they attract the best people on the planet, right? Because they're big and they have the capability to do that. And when you work hand in hand with those guys, you have to up your game, right? And that's what's a lot of the teams that we work with had the opportunity to. A lot of them got uplifted. Their thinking, their worldview, right, changes dramatically. So that's kind of a thing that I look at even when I travel. It's really about who I can meet than what I can see, right? And so that's been kind of my travel thing.
Yeah, I can't think of so many people whom I subtly learned so much while talking to them. Because seeing people doing much better and looking at things in a much better way, I think our brain naturally learns. I mean, if we keep it open,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
You have seen Sri Lanka as a country growing, right? What do you think is Sri Lanka's potential? What do you think we should be as a country focusing for the next decade?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have huge potential as a country to grow in this, especially this space, right? And I think we've missed many opportunities in the past, unfortunately. But when we are starting, 25 years ago, and none of us think we could build what we built, and we kind of kept going, right? And I think thing is that I think we've adapted, we grow, and as a country, we've always kind of keep moving forward. And people are very resilient. People, I think there's some great tech minds here. So I think we have to really think about building that talent base, helping our younger generation to look at the future. Now with every phase you go through, right? It was maybe .com time. There was a huge boom, and then there's now AI and a lot of that coming up, right? I think the opportunities are there a lot more compared to what it was, and I would look at this as a generational opportunity more than even a country, right? And some of the people will get great opportunities here or elsewhere, and a lot of people have had opportunities to work in a global setups, right? And I think it's really important to have a very strong education system and help people to really get into this platform, right? And I don't look at this as a Sri Lanka market or Sri Lanka thing, but it's a global thing, right? And as a Sri Lankan citizen, we this is an opportunity to all of us to become a global citizen, right? Whether it's here or somewhere else, is great if you're here, right? But if it's not, that's great as well, right? Because you will go and figure out something and come back. And a lot of the companies, if you think about who had set up in tech space, somebody has gone out, explored, and figured out something, come back and want to start something here, right? So I think there is no limit in that sense. I think from a technology space especially, and I think we should not think narrow-mindedly, okay, am I building this industry for Sri Lanka only, right? I think we are building this industry for the next generation of people, right? And they would work anywhere in the world, right? And that demand is so huge, and I think we have to keep addressing that, right? So I'm very passionate about education, training, and how we can build more and more of capabilities, open people's.
And you have done a lot of volunteer work as well, because you were the chairman of Sarvodaya Fusion, right?
Yeah.
That was also something to do with education and uplifting societies.
Right. Yeah, the Sarvodaya Fusion was a great experience. We work with some great guys like Vinay Ariyaratna, Dr. A.T. Ariyaratna, and the others, that team there, Harshali Enage, who was kind of one of the founders of Sarvodaya Fusion. So Sarvodaya Fusion is a part of Sarvodaya who kind of looks at technology and how do we build technology-based upliftment for our communities around the country. And so I was fortunate to get involved and be a small part in that whole journey, helping build that access to technology. First was really building access to technology, where before things like Nanasala, they were trying to help people.
So this was like 10 years
this is about 10 years ago, right? And still the organization is going on. The team is doing a great job. So we firstly was access, then is education, then employment opportunities, right? So that's kind of what the platform was for, is for, to build that access. I think now with the internet is a lot more prevalent and people have access to a lot more things. That has changed a lot, right? And but we've created a lot of entrepreneurs who are educating and opening up opportunities in many parts of the country, right? I was very thankful for that opportunity for Sarvodaya to be there.
And one of the things that you told me before in a private discussion is when you like it can change the trajectory of people, right? And especially when they're in a when they are studying, when they are kids in schools, if you expose them to technology or opportunities, I think it can change the way. I keep telling people, I was not intended to be in technology originally. I wanted to be a doctor at some point.
Wow.
And then I would have been a miserable doctor if I tried that. But then when I got exposed to tech, I ended up kind of changing my life and possibly a generation's life as well. And because it's the right time, learning the right thing, right? So we are also trying to do through Rootcode Foundation. We are going into like really underprivileged villages, and we are trying to adapt one school every year. This year, one school, but we'll see how much capacity we have next year. Like if we want to make real impact, we need to be constantly present and continue to kind of help students. So we picked a very underprivileged students in a tiny school in a tiny village of horror. That's far inside. You have to go through like sand roads to reach them. Nice. And the students they only have 70 students in that school, like one building. And the students who go there are the kids of like farmers to really below poverty kind of families. They can't afford to go to the city school, which is like 5 kilometers away. But what we saw there was the teachers and the parents and the principal really wanted to change everything and change their lives. So they were ready to grab the opportunity.
That makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference because whatever effort we put in, if they are not ready, they might not even see the depth of the help that we are offering. So we took an ambitious goal, but it was, of course, first year we wanted to test it out and see whether is it practical, is it impactful, both together. Right? So we decided we'll go every other Saturday, spend half a day there in the school. We didn't know whether students would turn up on a weekend. We didn't know whether our people would turn up. But like you said, people have been constantly volunteering from Rootcode to go there. I think it has a lot to do with the impact that they are feeling. And also because you don't get to feel like you are uplifting a generation of people that easily when you are in a commercial business.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think it has a huge impact on yourself, right? When you're volunteering and contributing.
Because I spent a lot of my early 20s volunteering for organizations and going into grassroots places to help people learn language, English, to computers, to everything else. And I know how much of fulfillment it gave me that nothing else gave me. So I think it has been going well.
No, definitely. I think we have a huge responsibility as well. I think we've been, so blessed to have access to these kind of stuff that we have today, right? And I think you can change the direction of one of these kids very easily, right? And by just giving some access, very similar to the experience that I've had. I had the fortune of getting access to some small computer thing when I was a young kid, right? And that got me very passionate about it. And just opening that up for at least few kids, it makes a huge difference to their lives, right?
Those smaller I don't know, the parameters that we push into people's lives can have a major transformational impact.
That's right,
I think on a grassroots level, it's fantastic to see.
Absolutely.
And I think Sri Lanka as a country has a huge potential, and looking forward to see.
I would also encourage more people to get into volunteering. I think more than the value that you add, I think it changes you, right? And
one of our side goals, this is not the primary goal, was also to show every other organization that something like a Rootcode Foundation is so simple to do. It doesn't cost you a lot. It just needs willingness and coordination for people. And in an ideal world, what we want to see is every organization kind of putting a bit of time on trying to do that, then I think we can have a great compounding impact.
No, you're very right. And it also builds you as leaders, right? Because if you can get a bunch of people to volunteer and lead that volunteer effort, right? It could be just a simple project, or it could be just a trip going and helping somebody on a volunteer basis. I think because when you're in a volunteer organization, right, some of the experience I've had with, Sarvodaya, Slascom and other places like that, people are not compelled to work with you, right? They're just there. They will only be there if you make it interesting, and you arouse their passion, and you make them compelling for them to come back, right? So if you can lead a volunteer organization, you can lead any organization, right? So I would encourage anybody to really go contribute, get into some of these volunteer learning leadership opportunities, and that will help you to think about, what is your leadership approach, right? How are you as a leader, what are you doing, right? And really help you think about it, right? Because it's not, nobody's compelled to work with you, right?
It's an amazing point, because no incentives, nobody is compelled, and then they still choose to work with you. And if you can replicate that in a commercial
setting, brilliant, right?
You're a brilliant leader.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people look at, especially a lot of people in young, growing industry professionals, look up to you kind of like a role model, because you have grown to like all the way to C-level of an organization and have done fantastic things, and you've built great things, you have mentored a lot of great people. What's your advice to somebody who's starting their career and who's very ambitious, who wants to become, who wants to get to the top at some point and make an impact, have a great life? What's your advice?
I think it's a great question, Alagan. I think a lot of people think about that, and I think we all worry about building skills and competencies and things like that. And I think, for me, I think the fundamental thing is about how useful are you in an organization or whatever that you're doing, right? If you're adding significant amount of value to whatever you're doing, then you will naturally grow into wherever you're going, right? So that's the view I like to take, right? Okay, we're working in a company, or you're working in an organization. Are you thinking about how am I adding value to the customer or to the organization or whatever that I'm doing, right? And that had helped me in my journey, right? It helped me to grow into whatever the next thing. I never thought about thinking about, okay, I need to now build this skill or that skill. I always figure out, okay, what do I need to do to make an impact, right? If you can continuously drive an impact and build that, and the other things will naturally, your skills and things will come, right? And because you are putting yourself in a position of value, we are creating value, right? And if you're consistently creating value, you're naturally will be valuable, right? And that takes you, obviously you have to be smart, and you have to learn all that good stuff, right? But your thought process is about, okay, I'm coming into work this morning and figuring out how I'm adding value, right? What am I doing today to customers? What am I doing to the organization? That has been at least my approach, right?
And that works, because to be valuable, you need to do everything.
Then you have to know everything else to be able to do that, right? And so that has been my simple kind of approach. Anybody who's starting now, I would still say the same thing. Look, figure out how you're impactful, what's the impact you're making. And if you find this when you're doing a business, right? There's no other way you're going to build a business if you're not valuable, right? And to your customers, right? And so that's I think a core theme, right? I think we should, every morning you should figure that out and say, look, what am I doing today that values whatever I'm doing, right? I see people sometimes focus too much about what is the value is adding to me, right? Because if you get useful to the guys that you want to contribute, right, and then it naturally comes, right? So there was a very interesting thing. I was doing this thing called work out loud. There's this practice. I won't explain it now, but one of the principles of that is to build great network or relationship. Or you go and figure out who are the people that you want to have in your network, or who you want to build with, and then you figure out who can help you grow, right? And you figure those guys out, and then you go back and figure this out. How can I help you? How can you help them to grow, right?
Okay.
Then the reciprocity come back later, right? So you figure out who can help you, and then figure out how can how can you help them,
Right.
and then it builds a real nice kind of a
Then you're
cycle.
useful wherever you go, right?
Exactly right. So this I love this whole work out loud model. It's about building an effective network and relationships, and by way of contribution as opposed to way of looking at what you're getting out of that relationship.
As simple as it sounds, it's a brilliant way to.
Yeah, it's a mindset, I guess, right? And I love that.
A little bit philosophical. What's your approach to life? What's your philosophy to life? I mean, we have a lot of questions, right? I mean, what is life? What are we doing here? And how do you deal with the philosophy
of life? Oh my God, yeah. Now asking questions I've never thought about, right?
These are answers that I'm searching for, so I'm asking everybody I meet. Yeah.
Well, I never had the need to figure out what's that question, right? And so, I mean, I haven't figured that out, right? I haven't had the need to figure that out.
Yeah.
And so I'm thankful for that. I'm not searching for the answer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you're busy, you're doing stuff, you're enjoying what you're doing, right? And so I haven't had the existential question. But if you really think about a philosophy, I would say, okay, you know what, it's a group of people that you're working with. We're all social beings, right? And how are you making an impact? Whether it's your children or whether it's your family or whether it's your broader team that you're working with, what is it that how are they contributing to those? Are you making an impact? Are you helping them uplift their lives, right? That's the only thing I think you can do beyond yourself, is to really, how do you help others to grow and come up, right? If you give a helping hand, that's probably the only other thing I think about. But yeah.
So I haven't found the answer either, Madu. I think I look at it in a similar way, that I don't really need an answer.
Yeah.
But let me do what gives meaning,
satisfaction
to me. Yes,
absolutely.
Meaning and satisfaction. For me, it's building things, growing people, and growing me at the same time.
Absolutely.
And also I have this little fascination of pushing boundaries, so that kind of gives me a little bit of a kick to life. So then I keep kind of breaking in multiple angles.
I think you've done some fantastic stuff, right? And with Rootcode and community, it's very great. And I was very curious of what are you doing in Estonia? Why Estonia? And I've seen you talk about stuff there and out of all the countries in the world.
So it actually happened to be one of the most beautiful accidents that happened to me, because like 5 years before, when we were like tipping off to the global scale, we started looking at a lot of European potential customers, and I knew it's inevitable that we open a business in the European Union. Then I evaluated, okay, what are the countries, of course, like the top tier ones to mid-tier to all possible options. And Estonia fascinated me for two reasons. One is how digital their economy was. Even at that point, it was like almost 99% digital. Other than getting married and getting divorced, everything you can do online. Now even that, they have built a feature. So they are debating in the parliament, I think. So it's a matter of sending a request.
You can click a button and get married.
That's also because they have a perfect identity system that has existed for years.
That's right.
So they
can
a
role model company for technology adoption, I guess, right?
Governance. So even my ID has a chip that they know it's only me with the PIN and everything that comes with it. So digitally, so it's a fantastic place to run a business, because I've never stepped into a government office ever
Right.
Registering a company, paying taxes to any process, permits to everything is online. So I liked, I'm generally fascinated by efficiency. So
Yeah.
I liked the fact so that I don't even have to travel there.
Right.
And also they had this fantastic program called e-residency that allows entrepreneurs from around the world to apply to become an e-resident.
Right.
That gives you an opportunity to build an Estonian company in the EU market and run it digitally. You don't even have to go and live there.
Right.
So that sounded too good to be true.
Yeah,
then I was like, naturally, I just put everything and applied, and then got in.
No, I love the point about efficiency. Right, it's a interesting thing, and I think Estonia. I know we've done some work in one of my previous organization called SL Cert, which is
SL Cert,
which is I was on the board for a short while. And Estonia has been helping on the cybersecurity side. They also kind of done some good stuff in that area, right?
They are. I think they are hosting the NATO's cybersecurity defense center as well, and they have done a lot of work in that.
It shows what focus and a small country can do, right?
They have like 2.2 million people. The country didn't even exist before 91. Like me and Estonia are the same years old. 91
Born at the same time.
the modern Estonia, I would say, because they were in Soviet control and then they had their own share of struggles. And I think that united the country, and then they are doing it. And recently I took up an official position as an envoy for e-residency as well. So that means
that's wonderful.
Officially part of promoting the country, and
so you're kind of getting more people to join the e-residency program. Is that envoy?
That might be like the result of it, but the goal is to kind of tell
people what it is,
how useful it can be, and also kind of represent Estonia.
So how has that helped your business?
One thing is it has helped us have a unbelievably efficient base in the EU.
Right.
That doesn't drain any of our energy in processes, bureaucracy, nothing.
Right.
That's probably the primary thing, and of course, all the benefits of being in the EU. Then you can really have stronger partnerships with EU companies, from banks to all the organization. You are under the same jurisdiction. It gives you so much of power and control. So that really helped me, and there are a lot of fantastic people in the government and the ecosystem. I think they have like the higher number of unicorns per capita in the region. There are like fantastic companies like Pipedrive to Bolt to Skype to TransferWise to many others coming. There are $1 billion plus. So and it's a small ecosystem. So you know everybody. That's the other. I mean, there are like 2 million plus people. So you would.
Very similar to when you're staying in Colombo or something,
yes,
right?
It's very similar. So when you're part of the ecosystem, everybody knows you. Then people help you. They support you, and a lot of smart people. The education system is one of the best in the world. So kids get exposed to technology from like first grade. I think that has generated a very technically skilled workforce. So that's really helping, and it's closer to our Nordic space as well. It's not too far from Sweden and Norway and Finland. So that's why.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go and have a.
Have you been to Estonia?
No, I haven't. I
should invite you one day.
Yeah.
When you're in the region, just drop by.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to.
There are some fantastic people, I think, who would love to meet you.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. So a lot of your customers are based out of the EU region? Is it?
Yes. Nordics is our primary market.
Right.
Northern Europe. Right. North America is our second market.
Right.
And now we are kind of gradually routing into the rest of the EU as well.
Right.
We didn't have any customers in EU 5 years back, and now it has become the majority.
Oh, fantastic. What's your journey like? I think you've done a great job in building Rootcode and things around it. I was very curious to find out what is your leadership approach. What is how do you think about when you're as a leader? How do you go about?
I guess I'm still figuring it out, but I think I think it's very similar to your advice you gave to young people. Everywhere I am, I want to make sure that I add value. I feel very uncomfortable if I'm in a place taking time or space but not adding value. So that means we relentlessly push for adding value to customers, so they realize even though we were small and we are still small, we had outsized impact. And for employees, I want to make sure that I add so much of value that they feel like they are growing and they are getting opportunities, they are getting exposed to things. So adding value is one of the main things. And then the other thing that I am usually like, I'm very honest in my opinions, whether it's whatever it is. So people also know that they can, count on what I say. That also means that sparks a lot of honest conversations that doesn't generally happen. So people, we talk about a lot of brutally honest things, and that creates a bond in the team. So that's something.
There's trust.
Yeah. And I think at the start of my journey, it's now almost 9 years, I was, it helped that I was a little reckless. Because somebody recently asked me in a university interview that, Alagan, you have learned a lot. If you can go back and start from scratch again, what would you do differently? I said I would have never started a company because I was borderline delusional that I can build a company. And that actually helped. Because,
absolutely.
If not, I don't think I would have.
If you think too much, you will never get started, right?
And it was too early, right? I was like, 23 when I started. So it was, a little bit overconfident at the time. But, the journey has beaten me up. Now I'm no more confident. I'm very calculated, and I've become very risk averse to some extent because, of course, I feel like I'm responsible for 110 people's lives, right? And that makes me grow into. So I think I've had the transformation of being a super ambitious startup founder to like a small medium business owner, and now looking at more stable kind of investor kind of approach to things. But I still keep my thing going. And what helped me in the journey was the people around me. I think if not for them, I don't think I would have gotten anywhere. Like people like Mangala, people like you, a lot of people whom I could reflect and bounce off ideas, to validate things, to see things, and to see things from different people's eyes. I think that has really helped me.
Absolutely, get those experiences and having a good, when you're a founder, especially having a network of people where you can bounce off ideas and things makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. And I still keep saying that we have achieved probably 5% of our potential. I think there's so much more to do.
Very true.
And it has become a fun game. So I don't have a life other than this, so I'm just gonna push everything. What else do you do other than work and your things?
Well, not a lot of work, a lot of things other than work at the moment. At the moment it's just, I think I'm singularly focused on building Scybers. Some of my other passions are a little bit of I love photography.
Okay.
I've done a bit of early days, having the dark room processing and taking black and white
manual processing.
Yeah, manual processing.
Did you wash and
wash and hang and all that kind of good stuff, right?
Those days.
And it was wonderful, right? And so during the uni time, I had a small kind of in the bathroom, you close everything up and process. I had a small lab there. That's one of my. I love to look at the things and how to capture.
It was funny times, right? I remember when I had my first. I went into some peace program where I was a delegate. I was barely 13, 14 years old, and then my only asset was I had a small Kodak camera with one reel. So the whole program for 3 days, I could take 30 pictures or 32 pictures. That's it.
Yeah.
So you have to count on every smaller thing to make sure.
Yeah.
And then come back and hope it turns out
good. It turns out good. Yeah. Now you take every second you take 30 pictures, right? Yeah, I mean, I love those experiences. Going and taking pictures on a different settings. I used to take nature pictures and people, right?
Right.
And those are kind of two areas I'd love to do.
Right.
But yeah, it's that's one of my kind of passions, which I haven't touched a camera for a long time. I think they are kind of rotting in my desiccator now, right?
Right.
But yeah, that was one of the things, and we started a small exhibition,
Okay.
which I think at Virtusa we started, and now is still continuing.
Okay. Like a photography.
That's a photography
exhibition.
exhibition, right? It's going on.
Nice.
Yeah. That's one of those things.
Great stuff. I used to be into photography as well, but I used to like wildlife a lot, but I don't think I've done anything to go into the wild and spend time. So that's
yeah. I think if you're a bit of a geek, your passion and everything has just become that, right? And,
absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's
Great. My last question would be like, what are you looking forward to, like in the next few decades? What?
Wow. Yeah, I think when you're, I think firstly, obviously, we are building the company, and I think that's going to be one of the priorities for me. And in the short run, and my kids are now fairly older; they're just at the university.
Right.
So I'd love to see them grow and getting into becoming into whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
Just kind of spending a little bit more time with them. They're not kids anymore, I guess. Right? They're young adults. Yeah, I think I'd love to explore the country a little bit more in Sri Lanka and wherever that around the world a little bit. I think that would be a key thing. I'd love the opportunity working with the younger startups and other entrepreneurs, and volunteer a little bit in helping wherever I can, and I think some of the key things that I've learned, I think from a leadership perspective, it's something that I'd love to see how others can, if there's anybody else who want to kind of grow into that's something I'd love to help out and do things. Actually, was something come to my mind is I had this whole, I think it came from one of the Tim Brown from IDEO. Very early days, I kind of figured out this how you as a leader. Right? Actually, before I answer that, I'd love to ask your view on what, as a leader, how do you think about things? What is your approach? Then maybe I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
As a leader,
what are you as a leader? What do you do?
Like, what's my role as a leader?
Yeah, what's your role? What is your role?
That put me into deep thoughts. I really don't know what am I doing, guys. I think earlier when I was small, very early on I realized that as a single person I can't make a huge impact in the world. I always have to have teams to be able to do big. So that's where my fascination into building teams come into play. What I do is facilitating people to do great work and building like ecosystems and environments where people can thrive and grow and really add value. That's my primary job. Other than bringing food to the table, of course.
That's a great way of looking at it, and enabling others to achieve what they're doing. I think there were kind of three things that I kind of gotten onto early around what is a leader and what is the role. So the three things are, first, your role as a explorer, right? Really looking out what's out there. How are you kind of building a journey for others to follow, an exciting enough journey others want to get on the boat with you, right? And you drive this. So it's one role as a leader is a role of an explorer, right? Second one is a role of a player coach. Right? You need to know how to play the game. You need to be able to coach the people. It's not a coach who doesn't know how to play the game. It's a
Sure.
you know how to do it, and you are helping others to kind of.
That's how real coaches are, right?
That's right. The second thing. Third role is being a gardener, right? Create. This is what you said, right? Environment, taking the weeds out,
Right.
putting the fertilizer in, and creating that environment so the others can kind of flourish in that environment. So I love these three kind of lenses that you can look at your role, right? As an explorer, as a coach, and as a gardener. And that kind of sums up for me what leadership is.
Beautiful. It was a great discussion, Madhu. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for the invite.
I knew one day when I start a podcast, I want to sit down with you.
Brilliant.
And then here I am.
I'm glad we managed to get our time together.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and the experience. And
wonderful.
I'll see you guys on another episode of Tech After Work.